for taking the time and attending today. We're looking forward to the opportunity of speaking with y'all. Again, yeah, my name is Matt Warda. I'm responsible for the intelligent workflow capabilities within IBM's what we call our Cloud Pak for Business Automation, which will be the main topic of today's discussion, right? Which is our automation platform, our business automation platform. It's the most comprehensive platform actually in the market for automation. And it's really there to help automate your business operations, right? So you can get better business performance. And before we get kind of too far down that stream of thought, I was talking with my daughter. I have 5 children, and my 13-year-old daughter asked me last year, right? Because we're all working from home, and she's hearing everything I'm talking about, and she's like, "Dad, what do you do?" I'm like, "Okay, well, I help organizations, apply automation for their digital transformation initiatives or their hyper automation strategy, et cetera." And she looked at me and had no idea what I was talking about, right? And so I thought about it for a minute and said, what's the gift of automation? What does automation really give you? And in the simplest terms, I came up with, it gives you time, right? Helps you buy time, and it helps your people buy time. And you can use that time to do multiple things, right? You can use it to improve customer experiences, improve productivity, operational efficiency, and you can use less time, right, to reduce costs, right? So I want to work faster and I want to lower costs, right? And that's one of the challenges that a lot of organizations have today that we help with, is really that contradictory balance between how do I innovate, how do I improve while still reducing costs and making sure I'm not compromising security, I'm not compromising my employee or customer experiences. And that's really the gift of automation, right? And what it helps us do. The other main area that I'll talk about too around automation and what it helps with is really around agility. So how can I respond with speed? But really how do I help absorb change, right? So if I apply automation and I'm in a digital world, I can now absorb change to more unpredictable situations that organizations face. And I think the last year or so of this pandemic is a good example of unpredictable situations that we need to absorb. That we never would have predicted, and how do we be more agile to respond to how customers want to interact with us differently? How do we now support processes in a remote work environment? I know from my team, been implementing our own automation technologies across the board to improve our operational efficiencies, right? When we're all working together, multi-team with designers and product developers and engineers and offering managers, all working within a single office, and now we're in a remote environment, really shined a lot of light on the challenges and the number of processes that we had that really we didn't realize that were so manually driven, right? And from that perspective, so let's kind of jump in here and kind of talk. And I always like to start out with the why. What are some of the challenges that we're looking at facing, and why do we apply automation? So this is not a fictitious scenario at all. This is actually based on 2 companies we worked with here in North America, both of them within the property casualty auto insurance. So let's call them Company A and Company B from that perspective. And if we go back about 2 years ago, Company A, right, was really embracing automation and engaged with us. And they started by automating their claims estimation or adjudication process, right? So if there's an accident, what do I need to do to basically estimate and validate this is a valid claim, and sometimes referred to as your first notice of loss process. But Company B still stuck, and was like, no, we're still going to stick with our manual process. Company A also looked at, hey, how do I enable my customers to submit videos, photos as part of that claims process or notice of loss? How can they ingest that more readily and quickly versus Company B, who really still relied on a lot of face-to-face adjusters, right? They have to go to the accident site or meet with them, manually see it, and do take pictures themselves. But Company A also provide the capability with us to provide secure mobile access, so mobile processing, and so that they could actually get in near real time, within a matter of minutes, validation that this is a valid claim, and can let the insured know that, hey, this has been approved. Here's our estimation. Go out and get a replacement if it's a loss of a car, for example, or you need a rental, or you need to do this, and let them know, right, within a matter of minutes, that they can go and do those things and provide, great customer service, versus company B, who was really unable to do that, and still required that their adjusters come back to the office, fill in the information, fill out what's required, and that could take up days to sometimes weeks. So company A is what we refer to in IBM as an automation achiever, right? Someone that's really achieving automation at scale, realizing the benefits of it, versus company B, which is a laggard, which is a slow adopter, right? From that perspective, right? So if you can think of it, which one do you think is faring better today in today's economic environments than the other? And it's probably going to be company A, right? So if we look at, some of the analysis that's been done, right, of these automation achievers, they're the ones that are ability they have the ability to effectively, and I use the word effectively purposely here, to apply intelligent automation across an enterprise, right? And what we refer to as intelligent automation is automation with the infusion of artificial intelligence or machine learning models and decision automation capabilities, right, to help augment, support key core human activities, and produce more predictability and higher quality outcomes, right? From that perspective. We also did a survey of about 1,500 chief operating officers and identified that around 26% of them actually fell into the categories we would say automation achievers, right? And they're expecting to outperform their peers over the next 3 years, right, as they gain efficiency. But the reality is, majority of companies fall in the laggard category, right? They're struggling. If you look at this from actually very recently here from IDC and then Forrester, most companies are struggling to really adopt automation, right? And from here on the left, many who have been interviewed here say about 73%, they're 12 to 24 months away from when they think they can really operationalize their enterprise digital strategy, right? And they also can't scale investments that they've already made. So a lot of these have made investments, have started an automation journey, but are having problems with scaling. And why is that, right? One of the reasons why is what we found, and actually the investments that we've been making over the last 36 months or so on really bringing all our automation capabilities together in a single platform, is a piecemeal approach doesn't work, right? It's a recipe for failure, right? You may also, depending on who you talk to, refer to as a bolt-on strategy, right? Where I start with one type of automation, and then as I see needs, I start bolting on all these different automation capabilities, and I spend all my time trying to just get my automation platform to work instead of getting it to actually automate my business, right? And doing it at scale. So when we look at it and say, what do you need then, right? And kind of break it down into these 3 areas. First, if I'm going to automate, I have to first get insight, right? I have to get understanding of my customers' data. I have to get understanding of my current processes and how they're performing and how they're actually deriving and getting to the outcomes that we have today, right? So it's really that insight. But to get the insight, you need to have the data, right? I need to have the data of not only from my customers, but I have to have the content, right? And to get the content and data, I have to provide digitization. I have to automate and digitize my processes and my systems, right? So that I've got that data that I can go and I can look at, and I can get that high quality information that I can start understanding where can I apply automation that's going to have the biggest benefit, and the right type of automation in a really a grander scale plan, right? So it has to be thoughtful, right? And not reactive from an automation strategy. So if we think about what the world could be, right? If we want, how do we get, better insight is, well, imagine if you had within your automation platform, a pure curated data lake, an ingestion engine that was really observing all your automations, that are observing your processes by doing process mining and introspecting of key logs and that, and can give you that insight. And it's just part of the platform and not something that you have to do, right? And then what if it also had built-in AI and intelligence and machine learning models that are both self-training, that don't require you to actually spend months and years of figuring out what that training data needs to be, but also the capability to be extensible from that perspective. So I'm AI ready with the data that I'm ingesting, and I can provide you with the key performance indicators and dashboards out of the box that you can use to monitor your business operations, and that control panel to then make decisions on what you need to do, either by applying additional automation or just basically tweaking decisions, process flows, to align with your overall business goals. And then finally, what if you could actually then have the ability to digitize your workflows, your content, so you could then take advantage by pinpointing those inefficiencies in your process, and you can quickly, continuously improve your operations, right? From a continuous optimization perspective, right? So that you can then have the strongest impact based off of what you're seeing and doing in near real time, right? Without having this laggard behind, I've identified something, but it's going to take me 6 months to actually then take advantage of that. And by that time, that situation may no longer be valid, right? So it's really closing that time between identification, understanding, and then acting upon that, and then continuously optimizing that over time to really realize the benefit. Okay. So a few examples of just some use cases of companies that we've been working with across our automation platform, and some of the benefits that they've gotten. It's really about how can I improve and automate my processes, and how do I get greater speed and reduce costs at the same time, right? So if we look at PNC Bank, and just for those, my background's been permanently in insurance and finance. So you'll see a lot of examples, and a lot of examples I use will be in that space. Although I have worked with quite a few in my previous life here with a lot of manufacturing distribution companies as well. But I started out in the industry in insurance and finance. But in this case, for PNC Bank, right, 80% reduction in applications requiring manual review, right? So this is a perfect example of the quickest work I can do is the work I never have to see. So how can we put some straight through processing in place, and really then take and apply our human knowledge and what makes us valuable and our creativity to that 20% of applications that really truly do need human review, right? Because they either are a valuable customer, they're high risk, whatever it may be that we've decided that requires that human interaction instead of humans looking at everything. If we look at, same thing for Barclays around the new business automation, really looking at reduction of the new number of employees that took to really source new processes around lending and some other areas. And then, others kind of them Popular, 90% decrease in their process completion times, right? And this is a good example of how we use RPA or digital workers to really automate those repetitive tasks and manual tasks. And because, bots, digital workers, they don't go on coffee breaks. They can work 24/7 around the clock. And then really, again, then using our human workforce to work on those things that are most important, right? That and getting the best value out of there. Okay.
Matthew, a
Yep.
quick question for.
Yeah.
So, when we think about automation, right, that there's always and kind of what you're doing right now, you're showing it from the very end, right? So that this what was achieved because of using all of those interesting technologies, but in terms of actually getting the benefits from your automation, you need to sort of even first think about what are you going to do with that saved time. So how do you actually start approaching to make sure that the time that you actually save, as you said, that you can actually use for something, for something useful? How do you approach this decision that's saying, hey, yes, we will go and automate 80% of the applications going through this intelligent system, but then we also but then we also know what to do with that saved time, and we know how to allocate those 20%, or is kind of like letting people go and reducing the workforce is the only option. How would you say the clients approach this sort of time saved used approach?
Yes, I think there's a couple different questions in there. And it was a great lead into my next section, which is, well, how do you do it, right? How do you do that? And we've kind of broken that down into this 4-step kind of methodology, which you've alluded to a little bit. Is, first, how do I discover and understand where my automation opportunities lie? How do I decide on where to apply automation and what's going to be the best benefit for me as an organization on twofold, right? Automation that I can apply quickly, and that's going to provide the biggest benefit to me to either free up time and resources, etc. And then how do I act upon that opportunity quickly, and then how do I continue to optimize? Those are the kind of the process we go through with helping organizations. But the other part of your question was, what do I do at that time? So I worked with one organization, financial organization, and so before, a little background, before I took over the program director for IBM, I actually worked for a solutions firm that helped executives and large organizations around the globe apply automation at scale. So it was a services firm, we'll say it as that specialized in process automation, which is my background. And we basically deployed about 800 deployments of RPA bots and about 300 process automations within about a year at scale. And I think we saved something around 20-some thousand hours of time. And of that time, we actually, the organization didn't actually lay off anyone. What they realized was reallocation of resources and applied them in certain areas to take advantage of opportunities they couldn't have afforded to before. An example of that was they always wanted to go into their one finance branch. They wanted to go into annuities, fixed annuities business that they couldn't before, because the perceived cost to onboard nationally all these new third-party providers that would sell these products was just astronomical. But by applying automation and resources that they saved on basically their servicing area and their new application process of some other product areas, they were able to actually enter into this new business line. And within about 6 months, and they had, before that said, it would take about 30 years to actually go into a new business line of what it would have taken to manually do all this. And by using, in this case, RPA and BPM, business process management, they were able to do that. The other areas that we've seen, I'm thinking of.
Hey, Matthew.
Yep.
Just a quick question. Thank you for clarifying BPM and for the behavioral scientists here. RPA is?
Robotic process automation, sorry.
Thank you. No, perfect. No, that's helpful. Thanks, Matthew. This is really exciting. Thanks.
No, thank you. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, IBM, we're known for acronyms, so call me out when I'm over abusing them anytime. So that's, I guess, there. But first, it's really about going back to the points on this slide here. It's first just discovering and understanding, right? And then the ability to decide where the biggest impact is. And there's a set of tools, right, that you can use from a discover perspective, and I'll go into that, is around process modeling, mapping, and mining, and tools that can actually identify, given patterns of work and behavior and processes, where the best opportunity for automation is, and can actually calculate what your return may or may not be, to give you a starting point, right? It's not the end all be all. It's a tool to help you so that you can make decisions more quickly. And I used to always tell customers that the time between deciding and actually doing something is where nothing gets done. And the longer that time goes, because you can sit around and hypothesize and what's the best place to start and where to start. And I always tell them, start somewhere and you're going to learn, right? You're going to learn over time, and you're going to understand for your organization, for your culture, what's the best application of the type of automation that is most consumable, that you can get the most benefit of given your overall outcomes and goals. So that's another thing I used to talk to customers about was, what are your enterprise goals? And everything should be aligned from the very top all the way down, so that there's a clear message and understanding of what it is you're wanting to achieve, and what is it that we're doing, and what's the benefit it's going to provide. And we call that goal-oriented. My gosh, I'm forgetting. Performance indicators, right? Where your key performance indicators are derived from the organizational goals that you have, and then therefore define the metrics that you need to measure and to decide on the decisions you should make and where you should act and apply automation at scale. So we call this the automation dial. And depending at where you're at, within an organization. It can be within a department. Within a single organization, you can have multiple areas of your business that are at different points within the automation dial. And even within current departments, you may have multiple projects that are going on that are some are in discovery phase, some are in that deciding, and we're just applying automation to automate for automation's sake. And there's going to be decisions that you need to make as an organization of, do I just automate to automate because I know there's savings, and that's not necessarily 100% bad, but also we want to make sure that we're not just automating the bad, but we're also taking it as an opportunity to understand, and how can we improve our processes, how can we improve the types of decisions we're making, and actually automate an improved way, because now that we have automation, we may do things differently and not just stuff automation into a manual world. Okay, from that perspective. Moving on then, so what enables all that? So it's kind of a little bit on the 4-step process we follow, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of different little steps within there, but that's from the high level big picture. But looking at what do we provide, so the IBM Cloud Pak for Business Automation is our automation platform from IBM, and it's made up of a set of core automation capabilities. So if I look at kind of that middle layer, we call it the core automation. We provide automation around document processing, workflow. I'll go into each one of these: decision management and content services. And then we also have what we call automation accelerators. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, right on the Discover, we have process mining and modeling capabilities so we can get that understanding. We have robotic process automation and digital labor capabilities. So saying, okay, how can I provide a flavor of automation that maybe I just need to automate exactly what the humans do today, using the exact interfaces that they use, but just have it done by a robot, right? From a digital worker perspective, and allow me to do that so I don't have to do a lot of underpinning, and I can take advantage of automation very quickly and cheaply. And then there's operational intelligence, again, giving you that insight into what's actually happening real time or near real time, so that I can make, again, decisions on further optimization opportunities that we have. And we call those on the top, those automation accelerators, things that we just get very quickly and easily to help us on our automation journey as we begin to learn, and then start applying then those core automation capabilities that we want to grow up to. And it's really great because you can use some of these simple accelerators to actually get benefit and then fund some maybe larger efforts, right? Like you want to then automate your order to cash process, right? You're probably not going to start through day one, or maybe you will, but there's probably a lot of simpler at scale automations that you can take advantage of to fund your larger transformational initiatives as, in parallel. Right? So use automation to fund more automation capabilities and use the return you get to fund those projects. Okay. This is all provided within a single modular but integrated platform. What I mean by that is we have a common low-code authoring experience across all these capabilities and expose what we call Business Studio. But you can take advantage and start wherever you want. So you don't have to buy the whole thing. You don't have to digest the whole thing. You can say, you know what, if I just want to start with robotic process automation, I can start there. And if I identify that, hey, you know what, I really want to automate this value chain or this process, so this operational process, and I need workflow, I can then plug that piece in and they work together. Okay. If I see that, you know what I really need to do is look at my compliance and provide some automation or I would say, decisions at scale, or treat knowledge as an asset, and I want to do some decision management, I can then add that piece and just enough of that piece. And it's all one thing that works together seamlessly to achieve your overall goals, right? From that perspective. Okay. So that's kind of high level what the automation, Cloud Pak for Automation is. I think one of the differentiators that we have from IBM is, one, it can run anywhere. It can run on premise, look at the very bottom. It can run on our cloud or across cloud, or it can run hybrid, where maybe there's some things that we want to keep on premise, others we want to have in the cloud, and we can do that and support that. Or you can have even one solution running in multiple different deployment types. Okay. So it's the broadest reach, and we kind of run how you want to run and where you're most comfortable, public, private cloud, or just on premise in a traditional fashion, containerized, or just, kind of, I'd say the standardized server type model from there. Okay.
So Matthew, a quick question on here, right? So it looks like to be a pretty extensive set of tools, right? And it's almost seems that you need to have a higher blessing of go and try to onboard those things and go and try do those things, right? And I think and that's why it's taken so much time to actually try go from talking to actually doing, because there's a lot of budgetary constraints and the contract constraints. Is there a way to sort of just go and play it in the sandbox kind of fashion where you can use some of those tools at the fraction of cost and just see what could be some of those tools and what would be capability beyond just a regular demo?
Yeah, so most definitely. So we've got multiple ways to engage. We have our trials, right? And trials can be either hosted within our SaaS environment, and you can even purchase this as a SaaS model. I forgot to even deploy that, so we'll actually manage that for you across the platform. You can get a trial where basically, we provide you with any one of these features or all these features for you to do that. I'm actually doing this with a North American bank that I just approved yesterday for them to trial an unlimited amount of use to see how it fits their organization. But the other thing too is we have a very simplified licensing model. So you basically can license as little or as much as you want. And as you start trying things out, let's say I start with RPA and I think I'm going to go crazy with that. And then I decide, workflow really seems to be what I need, or I need more of this intelligent document capture capability. Your license can be reapplied across any of these capabilities. You don't have, it's just one, we call it VPC. It's just one license type. And we've got customers that are getting into the platform, for $15,000 that are actually doing quite a bit with it. So you can get in a pretty low entry point, and then you can go up, and scale across an organization, where we have some organizations that have, that are running this globally across their organization and doing, most of their business critical with over 1 million transactions a day, with millions of documents and content that they're storing, that have been doing this for a while on their automation journeys. So it really, you can start small and kind of grow is the answer there.
Matthew, this is Clemson. That 15K figure, that's a pretty low barrier to entry. Can anybody pick this up, or do we need somebody who really understands that to basically help us or to run this for us?
Yeah, so I think it depends, right? And across the core. So I would say, the accelerators, so I call them that, right? You can go out and even under there and start doing process mining, and you can actually go out and zip your credit card and start doing modeling of your business organization and decisions and processes and all that for $500 a year.
Wow.
Right. To entry there, to, get a bot or two to play with and from a certain departmental and so again, it really depends. And I'd say that, the accelerators are there because they're aimed at the business. As you can see on the left there, I try to call it that low code authoring. So one of the things that you'll see a theme across all these, if I get through it, is there's really the effort that we've made is to create, there's always an IT experience. There's also a business experience, meaning we provide the right level of automation capability to put it actually in the hands of the business, because they have the understanding of the problems that you want to solve. And they're best suited for that technology at scale, right? So they can apply that themselves, but then they can be supported in a collaborative fashion with, some problems either I don't want to solve, they're just harder, and I do need a traditional developer to help me. And it's more of a collaborative type effort at that point, right? So I can start small, grow, and then I can also get the support that I need. And the benefit of that also is that my highly skilled resources that are working in enterprise critical solutions aren't burdened by things that the business could be doing themselves. And they can just reach out for help for the things that they're each best suited for.
No, I hear you. No, thanks. Appreciate that.
So kind of running through these from a little bit
so maybe a little bit to add to what about security, right? So bringing some kind of new technology, and especially such as extensive as this one, will require not only sort of this developer buy-in, but also the security buy-in to make sure that it's actually fully integrated and it's fully kosher and it's not talking to anybody else. So can you speak a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so security is one of the things IBM takes ultimately, like, is one of the top priorities, right? being the program director, the number of security processes we have to go through before we can bring anything to market is quite extensive, as well as our accessibility that we invest in, et cetera, features. But so depending across the board, right there, I would say, we have to secure data at rest, right? We provide, security for the government that, we can't sell to the general public, but we provide all levels of security that make sure that you're successful. There's also around the ingestion engine, which I would get to. So any of these features as you're using, there's actually an embedded curated data lake that's happening, and everything that you're doing is being ingested, and that provides a series of security by role or security policies that you can put in place to anonymize, pseudo-anonymize data, to remove certain data for PI personal information, or any type of sensitive information that we may have, that it can actually handle that as the data is flowing within there that maybe not be needed. It's quite amazing when we look at going from a manual to an automated world. There's a lot of data we pass around that we actually don't need to make decisions, to automate workflows to that. A perfect example, I worked on a new business enrollment, get an insurance, and they had about 250 data elements for a new business enrollment. And yes, we needed that to capture the customer's data up front for the policy. But when we look at the processing of the workflow from kind of quote to card, we called it, we're all being serviced, there was only 15 unique elements of data we actually needed to do that. But anyway, point being is, yeah, it's highly secure, and we can go into that. And each one of these automation capabilities has its own unique security security features that make sure that it's not only fast but safe, right? From there. Okay.
Thank you.
So going into these features, so process mining, I talked a little bit about that. That gives you the ability to really analyze and optimize by introspecting your event logs, as well as allowing you to model, and provides you with like pattern recognition. So I can easily discover my existing process, and this is pre-automation, right? Saying, hey, how's my business running? Well, you're using systems today and data's flowing someplace. So this allows, with a series of connectors, to plug in, and using algorithms and AI can actually then create a representation of your process for those areas of the process that, for whatever reason why you didn't have the data, didn't have access to. You can then augment that with, well, I know these steps are happening. And then you can use that to express measurement of your KPIs, as well as it will actually identify areas of what I'm looking for, the best areas of my goodness, this morning, too early, of opportunity for automation, right? Saying this because of this pattern we're seeing, or this is a good case for RPA. Or if we look at that you actually have a lot of variant in this process, maybe you want to put a workflow because this one path is your most performant to give you the outcome, and you define the outcomes that you want. It can be time, it can be cost, and say this is the best path for you. If you would apply maybe a workflow system or process automation or business process management system to actually govern this process and ensure that the right work is going down the right path to the right person at the right time with the right amount of data to reach your business goal. So that's what kind of the process modeling is. It's that discover, right? And once I discover that, as we talked about, we can apply different types of automation. One automation may be, hey, I noticed that I have a lot of repetitive work. And so we'll notice that from the process mining that for these steps, for certain steps, there's not a lot of variance. So it's probably a good indicator that people are just doing the same thing again and again and again and again. And we can actually look at that, and depending on how low you can get to actually tracking actual individual desktops, we can say, hey, you could just automate this from a robotic process automation perspective and automate the redundant processing of data, right? Of rekeying information into a system, and it can do that for you. Or the evaluation of some spreadsheets that are coming in, or paying of invoices, et cetera. And I can do that all in one place. And I can do that by recording humans' actions. I can look at it and record what someone's doing on their system by logging in and out of systems, entering things in, and actually will then perform that for them by using literally hundreds of pre-built commands that are there for handling of spreadsheets and keying of data and going between different systems, etc. From that perspective in a graphical fashion. And we also then can take those bots, those RPA bots, and has built-in chat bot, both from a virtual agent and we call it an IVR, interactive voice response system. So I can now have an interaction with a human. Then I can ask them, oh, what do you want? I want to do a change of address. I want to, okay, I'm changing my zip code. What's this new zip code? And then it can actually then carry out the action that's being requested on those systems and then come back and very quick time say, okay, I just changed, in this case, your zip code to 90210 for Beverly Hills, whatever it may be. Is that all you wanted today? Thank you. From that perspective. And that's all capability that's built into the RPA function. The other area that we talked about was around document processing. And that's really, if I look at, and again, let's take RPA, for example. If I'm going to act like a human, robot process automation, a lot of work that we do is around the processing of documents. So how can I digitize these documents? One way of doing it, especially today, and something that we released about a year and a half ago, was around our mobile capture capabilities. So allowing our customers and employees to actually use their cell phones to capture digital images of documents. It will actually, on the device using with the backend server, do the capture and extraction of that information. You can actually use a little low-code workflow experience to guide that user through, do this, then do this. You can ask them challenging questions. Well, what's your date of birth? What city? So that you can challenge that against what's being picked up and validate that what we're detecting is actually accurate, and also to identify if there's any fraud that may be going on. That, you know, we looked at this scanning of a driver's license, and our backend AI is telling us that we believe this is a male. It's between the ages of 40 and 50. We ask your birth date and they're saying they're 19. Okay, there's probably something going on here. We need to challenge and maybe route that to a human for human in the loop processing. And we don't want to process this automatically. So those are some of the capabilities we have around there. As well as traditional document capture, right? Of capturing of information that you would expect of, you know, optical character recognition, as well as we use artificial intelligence to basically extract and classify. We have pre-trained models for certain document types so that we know that we've looked at thousands of different documents in a particular category, let's say invoices, for example, and we know how to just, when one gets sent in, to pre-train itself and train itself, okay, this is what I'm identifying. This is, you know, address, this is item, this is quantity, this is amount. And then actually, if there's any level of confidence below a certain threshold, it can then route it to a human who will either validate or say, no, it's really here. And then it will retrain itself. So the next time a document of that type comes on, it can pull that data from there to help you digitize things more quickly and easily, as well as assuring the level of confidence and accuracy of the data that's being pulled from these documents. Okay. From there. And of course, if we're pulling all this and digitizing all this, we need a good place to store it. And that's where our robust content services come in to play here, is we can store both structured and non-structured data, documents, text, images, emails, audio, video, and make it available to be easily identified, searched, grouped together. Our content repository is one of the key repositories that serves the entire platform, as you can imagine, from capture, from workflow, from decisions as well, to actually make decisions based off data that's coming in, and then actually using that to derive the best outcome that we need to do there. Okay. Checking time here for a second. How are we doing on time? We doing okay? What we got left?
Okay. Sorry, Matthew, we got about 15 minutes left.
Okay.
And what we're thinking is, if you go for about 5 more minutes, we'll take the last 10 minutes and get questions.
Yeah, so I will.
That works for you.
Yeah. Okay. So the other main area, which is really the core of the automation platform, is our intelligent workflow. And it's really around there for maximizing performance. And it's really the orchestration of your key value chains, your processes across an organization. What makes us unique is our intelligence that we've infused throughout it. So one, we provide business self-service, so you can create these workflows on demand that are directed for you, that go through a company defined governance process for promotion. We infuse it for AI for one in two areas. One, for work management. So we have intelligent task prioritization so that we can use AI based off of your overall organizational goals, based on who's best at completing what type of work, and actually prioritize work for different individuals to improve the throughput of a single team, as well as providing decision support so that if I have tasks and activities that people are doing, it introspects and uses some machine learning models that will actually give you recommendations on outcomes and decisions and tasks of what you should do within that workflow by observing behavior of your teammates, historical performance, etc. on there. We also have natural language interaction to allow you to interact with your workflows and data in a natural way of how you want to work, right? And then finally, operational intelligence, right? Everything that we do within the platform, especially in workflow, we provide KPI management, no code business dashboards, so you can actually understand what's happening. You can get predictions, suggestions, and you can understand the overall performance of your workforce and how that's aligned or not aligned to your overall business goals, and make those tweaks and tunes either assisted by AI and machine learning or manually by adjusting team throughput, size, reallocation of work, etc. Okay. And again, I won't go through all this, but we provide a multi-persona user experience. So we've got from the right side, my skilled workflow developers working with business experts, all the way to the business users using it at runtime, from no code on the left to low code to the type of coding experience that you would want for your IT support, those other, your business solutions. So it's a multi-persona environment that works collaboratively together on a single runtime. Okay. We have our how I do work, and how work's delivered to me is what we call workplace. It's our one place to manage all work, to how I get work, how do I understand how work is performing, and how do I understand how my team is performing. Again, it's infused with AI, so I can see, hey, what should I be working on by using AI and tell me the most important tasks to work on right now. I can provide decision support, as well as the ability to say, hey, as work comes in and I get a piece of work that maybe I haven't modeled or automated, I can quickly at runtime, a business user can actually whip together a no code workflow to maybe get a certain level of request or a multi-approval process that they can then track, and do that in the configuration in a matter of minutes. Okay. And again, all this is actually predefined dashboards that come out of the box for you to give you those insights of what's happening, so you can better allocate and understand how your workers are performing across your processes from that perspective. So yeah, and then a little bit more on that, because I think this is the real power of our platform, is that curated data lake, that everything that's happening across what process I'm running, what decisions am I making, what content am I using, is all being tracked. And you can then visualize that through a series of no code dashboards. You can create KPIs and charts in a matter of minutes. You can get complete visibility in your workforce, will tell you your team throughput, capacity, utilization rate, cycle times, and infused with AI that will actually give you suggestions and predictions of certain situations and alert you when something's happening that's either good or bad, depending on what you care about. Okay. And again, this is just an example of some of the natural language capabilities that we provided. We all love dashboards, but when we have questions at time of need that maybe we didn't create a dashboard for, and someone says, hey, well, how am I doing on this lending process? You can actually query your performance data of what's happening and ask it questions like, okay, how many loans do I have in process right now from California? We just had a snowstorm here in Austin, which never happens. Tell me how many claims I got for Austin in the last week, and it will actually give you that data. I can then request, okay, show me that in a bar chart, pie chart. Okay, export that to an Excel, send this to my manager, and do those kind of things just through a natural language interface.
Matthew, two questions. First is, while we're on natural language interface, is it only in English, or can this be adapted for Arabic?
Yes, so phenomenal question. So right now, we just released this and what we call tech preview. So it's only in English today. But IBM policy is, you only get one release, and then your second release, you have to support the 15 top languages, and Arabic is one of them.
Right.
So I can't commit to, so I can't make any promises, but that would be the next thing that we would provide in our next release.
Yeah, you might be looking for someone to experiment with that, perhaps.
Yes, most
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. But the second question comes from Mohammed Garhi, and he says, on one of the bank's examples mentioned, there was and Mohammed, make sure I'm saying this right, there was a reporting cloud acting as a single point of truth. Can you talk a little bit more about this? Any more details on this interesting topic? Single point of truth.
Single point of truth. Oh, was it in the? It was probably the one I skipped because it wasn't my client. And so I'm trying to think of the scenario there. And probably around the master data management of being assured that we have a single point of truth for data that's coming through. So part of our Cloud Pak strategy, there's something called Cloud Pak for Data that we use that has data stewards that actually make sure that we have a single point of truth that's being used for our decision making, as well as what you're seeing here in our kind of the second bullet, that pure curated data lake, that the data that we're using for our AI and machine learning is the right source of information and is truly that source of truth that we have for making decisions, if it be for a lending process, because as you can imagine, there's many multiple systems that are running within our CRMs, right, that we need to basically make sure, okay, what is the single source of truth for that information? And so that comes in our Cloud Pak for Data.
Yeah, and that was my question as well. How do you determine that single point of truth? And then is there an accountability for that somehow?
Yeah, so part of the Cloud Pak for Data, and it actually is based off of the same workflow engine. So it's one thing across IBM, and it's my area too, is that we have one workflow engine that works across all of our Cloud Paks and technology, right? And you may not even know it because it may not be exposed, but in that case, and the single point of truth, right, there's some work that comes up front of what I think it is. And then there's some intelligence and rules, as well as some AI, machine learning, that will identify, hey, there may be a conflict here, and actually routes that through a workflow to data stewards that then make a decision, right? No, this is really, Matt Warda versus Matthew Warda, the same person, or they're not the same person, or this is bogus information. You ignore it when it's coming from here and get it from this source. So some of that, it's really a machine and human collaboration, right? And then that's kind of stored for future use. And then it also federates across multiple systems. Yeah. And
No, that's really helpful because Boataz followed up, and we're going to go into some questions here. So as you have questions, please put them into chat or feel free to come off mute and ask Matthew. But Boataz asks, automating a full process may break what he refers to as segregation of duties. And I mean, I think you're getting to that right now where we talk about a BPM manager.
Yeah.
As segregation of duties, what does that do for control over the process?
Yep. So the level of governance that you want to provide, and so let me make sure I'm clarifying. Segregation of duties, I'm assuming if I create the process, I promote the process, and the person that creates it and designs the end-to-end workflow can't necessarily promote that to production. Is that what we're talking about around governance? And we want to make sure that segregation between.
Yeah, I'm going to refer that to Moataz. Is that what you're focusing on? Please feel free to come off mute if you'd like.
Yes, I was mentioning that if I'm automating processes between two different teams or many different teams, and I'm going to automate the full process, including or involving different teams in a process, this is a part of segregation of duties to have second eye or to have more controls. So automating the full process and excluding the different teams may weak the process control or exclude the control within the process. This is my point.
Yeah, so within a workflow, so you definitely have that built in. Actually, there's what we call the 4 eyes principle, right? So you need at least 2 people to look at this, and from different teams or within the same team with different people. So as part of your workflow automation, it actually acts as a governance model, right? So if I have, for example, like we have in the US called Dodd-Frank. So it means if I have to have certain disclosures as part of a lending process, right, that I have to do, and there's certain segregations of duty that I'm required to follow by law that I can't skip, well, you just model those into your process, right? And you're always constrained by regulation and compliance. So there's some things that you could say, you know what, I could automate this as a straight through process, but because of regulations or compliance or law, I have to still have these certain steps, and you just model that. And the great part about it is everything that then that goes through when you get challenged on that and someone comes in for an audit, you can say, hey, here's my workflow logs. Oh, here's the dashboards. And I can show you for repudiation or auditability that I did go through these. I did enforce segregation of duty, that it did go through at least 2 approvals of human touching. And you just don't automate what you can't, and you automate what you will. And yeah, you just model that as part of your process flow.
Okay, thank you.
And it sounds like, Matthew, there, there's a lot of decisions that need to be made. And I'm actually going to go all the way back to the beginning of your presentation, where you presented the leader, kind of the leaders in this and the laggards in this.
Yep.
Can you talk about the difference inside organizations that might produce a leader as opposed to a laggard?
Is it more from a cultural perspective, technology? Yeah. So the biggest challenge for automation, I would say, is the fear for automation is because what does it mean, right? It's like, and getting over that. So having a good change management, and that's actually what I used to do for a lot of organizations, and by doing multiple workshops, but having a clear voice and then putting automation in your terms for your company and making sure they understand, how does it apply to me? And the question earlier too, and I forget who asked it, so I apologize, was really around how do you, how do you be successful? How do you know what to automate? So applying some of those accelerators, like give them a taste of automation. I always tell the story because it's the same. I'll go into an organization in the past and I'll begin automation and I'll sit down with the actual business users, and if there hasn't been good education and from the leadership all the way down that explains how we're using it and how it's not a threat, it's actually going to help you do more with what you want to do and let you work on the things you want to work on and not all other redundant stuff. It's like pulling teeth, right? It's like I have a really hard time, and they'll say, oh yeah, I've got this one little area, and then I'll automate that, and then they'll see it and they'll interact with it. And all of a sudden they'll come back with 50, 60, 100 different ideas of things I could also automate. But because they didn't understand it and didn't see how it applied to them, they're scared of it. So they hold back a lot, right?
Yeah.
And also it's a lack of just understanding. So having a good change management plan, an education plan, and really addressing, what does automation mean to the culture and fabric of your organization is essential for success. I think that is probably the number one success criteria, I would say. And then number 2 is, it's a 3-legged stool, right? Is choosing the right automation vendor. Of course, I'm going to say that, but I truly believe that because I came from a partner that used IBM technology and then came and joined IBM 18 months ago in this role. But is really choosing someone that you can start with and scale, because the one thing I do know is that you don't know what you're going to do day one. You know where you want to start, but as you learn, it's going to change, and you need to have a vendor that's really your technology vendor that's helping you with the right automation as you need it. That's going to benefit you. Yeah.
Awesome. No, thank you very much, Matthew. And we've got time for 1 or 2 more questions. Let me just pause right there, and feel free to come off mute or put your question in the chat.
I just have one question regarding the platform.
Yes.
The platform is very interesting. However, I have a question. I think that the one who can afford this platform in terms of these interesting features is the large companies or the multinational companies. So if this platform we can have this lot of features can be shrink to minimize these features to be affordable for the small and medium companies or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like you said, it's a feature rich platform. as our company is consuming 100% of all the capabilities today, you're absolutely correct. It's going to be the very large companies that are using the full breadth of the platform. Majority of customers, if regardless of medium, small, but their appetite, and that's the beauty of how we've designed this. It's modular. You can just use whatever automation capability you need, and that's what you pay for. You don't have to consume the whole, let's say, the whole elephant or whatever the saying is at once. You can just take a bite of what you need. And depending on it, like I said, there's pieces that are $500 a year. There's one that are a couple thousand. There's one that's 15,000, all the way up to, yeah, you're right. If I'm gonna run, across 200 servers globally and do multi-million transactions, yeah, you're probably getting there into the 6-7 figures then. But then you're getting the value out of it, right? So we try to make it value-based. We call it composable. So there's something called an operator. So when you basically get the whole cloud pack, and then through the operator, you say, I want this, I want this, I want this, and then that's what's available to you. Everything that we provide in the platform, you only pay for production use for majority of it. So you can play with all the other, in non-production or test environments. You can try everything out you want, but it's only when you want to promote to production that you then pay for that as you realize the value.
Okay, thank you.
And then there's different SaaS. Like I've got companies that are running 50K globally, their manufacturing process a year on their SaaS offering. So it all depends. And then, again, the smaller manufacturers, but yeah.
Matthew, we really want to thank you for your time today and this fantastic information. There is a lot of great stuff on these slides, and I know we're going to have access to these, and we'll have a chance to walk through these in greater depth.
Yep.
And for my friends from Vodafone, an opportunity to apply this to your project. We'll meet again next Tuesday at 5 o'clock. Leave a little time after our presentation next Tuesday. We're going to talk about, again, a collective work process, but leave a little time because we're going to talk a little bit more about what Matthew's presented, as well as what we've got next week and how we might apply that to our project. Also watch your WhatsApp, because we'll need to get those team project slides into Noha so that we can understand where everybody's going on their team projects. Again, Matthew, thank you very much. Any last comments for everybody?
No, just thank you. And, like I said, Happy New Year. And hopefully 2021 is a brighter, a brighter spot in the grander scheme of things. So yeah, thanks again for having me.
Thanks,
Thank
Matthew.
you so much.
We appreciate your time. And that's all we have for today. If you'd like to stick around for a few minutes and ask Matthew any more questions, he's available, and we're available as well for a few minutes. But we hope everybody has a great evening, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.